Thanks, everybody.
Hello there.
Wow, look at this.
Hi.
Wow.
Guys, the cast of Outlander, one more time. Thanks so much for being here, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
This is incredible. I know the books were popular, but when you guys signed on for season 1 of this show on Starz, did you expect anything like this, a phenomenon quite like this?
No, God. I mean, I had not been on a TV show before, so I had no expectations. But I had a week between the time I tested with Sam and I was in Scotland. So
In Scotland shooting it.
yeah, well, they were going to shoot in like 2 weeks' time, so they got me there to start building clothes for me.
Now, I think everybody here is really excited for season 2 and for details without spoilers, obviously. But I'm kind of curious. I want to go back to the beginning for you guys because each of you embody your characters so well. And it's one of those shows where it is not necessarily a love triangle, but it's 3 people, 3 major roles, and each of you, it doesn't feel like anybody else could play these roles at this point. Perfectly cast. So how did you get cast in this show? What was the process like for you?
Yes, going back almost 3 years now, and I was asked to audition and was sent about 15 pages from, actually taken from the book. They were just dialogue that Diana had written, and very quickly went through a sort of rounds of auditions. I had a Skype interview with the producers, and then was asked to test, which was kind of nerve-wracking, but I didn't really honestly know what kind of show I was getting involved in. If I'd known, I might have maybe been a bit more nervous, but...
You were just like doing interviews and auditions for like half of something like you didn't know.
No, but I very quickly realized, what a vast world that Diana has written, and I was really excited about it. I sort of sped-read bits of the book to work out, who this character was, and it certainly, it really intrigued me.
And you guys?
I cast out of London. It happened relatively quickly. I mean, I wasn't aware of the books beforehand, and it's been, a big part of the journey, sort of, getting to know the books and getting to know, the fans who are such sort of admirers of, and these books are so cherished by.
I think admirers is putting it lightly.
You're right.
Die Hard, maybe? A little more.
Die Hard, would that be fair? Yeah. And obviously it was a very intriguing proposal because they were looking for one actor to play 2 people, which is sort of very unusual for a screen project.
Did you read for both, or did you read for one mainly?
No, had to tape a scene for both characters. So that was already pretty interesting. And then meeting Ron, who I'd been a big admirer of Battlestar, so I was very intrigued to meet him. And it was from the beginning, it felt like it was going to be a pretty interesting ride, and it's proved.
I'm kind of curious, from the beginning with the 2 characters that you're playing, did you try to draw any kind of emotional line between the 2 of them in terms of your performance, or did you kind of just be like, well, they look like the same guy, I don't need to really draw that emotional line, they can be completely different in terms of how I perform them?
I think Ron and I both had an instinct from the beginning to, in a way, be quite bold and not try and do anything physically to delineate, so that we weren't going to have, one having a beard and one having a glass eye or anything like that. We wanted to try, if possible, to make it something in the eyes. That's obviously you can fail with that, but I was really encouraged that Ron felt that it felt that way as well, and it's been a really rich journey, bringing these 2 people to the screen.
And Caitriona, what about you and getting cast for the show? Because your part is so pivotal. I think it's a woman that we've never seen on screen before in terms of how strong she is and how much she really commands these relationships.
Yeah, well, I mean, these guys were cast about 3 months before I even heard about the project, and I just got sent through my manager 2 scenes with barely any breakdown of the character. It was just like 2 lines, I think. And I put myself on tape, and I didn't hear anything for a week or 2. And then they just phoned back and they were like, actually, they want to see more. They want to see, so I taped 2 more scenes for them. And then they wanted me to test with Sam. And so, and then it just happened so quickly. I mean, this was late August, and I was in, you know, I think when I was taping was late August, and then we tested early September, and I was in Glasgow, I think, on the 12th of September or something
We're all
like
joking about how we think that it was almost on purpose that the producers did this to replicate, you know, Claire's journey as well. You know, she's
just
dropped
threw
into this
me
world
in.
and just has to deal with it, and it sort of feels like the same sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, she is such an amazing character. And, you know, for me, it was just completely new undertaking. You know, as I said, I had a very short credit list before this. And, but that, I think that sort of lack of knowledge, that naivete kind of helped.
Do you feel like your life has changed after this show? You said a short credit list. You kind of jumped right into it. And now the show is, we've got a lot of diehard fans here, you know? You got a lot of fans.
I mean, yeah, it's completely changed. I have a fantastic job that I love. I now live in a different country. No, everything's changed. You know, the show's kind of become our lives. You know, we shoot for so long, and then we're promoting it, and all of the fantastic things that come along with that. I mean, the amazing fan base, and, you know, the family that we've created on set. You know, it's just all been amazing.
Now, I ask this question of actors a fair amount, especially from television shows who go through a number of seasons doing the same character. You're on season 2, but I feel like, Caitriona, with your character, she's such a strong, specific kind of woman that I'm wondering if you feel protective over the way that they write her sometimes. If after one season, you'll get a scene and you'll be like, I really don't think she would do that. Like, that's really not what my character would do.
Oh yeah, no, I've gone to bat for Claire a few times. You know, it was amazing in the beginning. You know, Tobias, I think, was the first person he would get a script and we would talk with the writers and he would be like, but what about this? And I was like, oh, we can do that? Ah. And it was a real awakening. And, you know, it takes a while to gain your confidence to...
And the writers saw it in your eyes and,
they were like,
Tobias, stop.
Shut up, Tobias. But, you know, as the season, you know, as season 1 went along, our confidence grew, I think, with all of us in our knowledge of our character and how protective we felt. And there's definitely been a few times that I've felt very strongly about things. And, you know, you go to the writers and sometimes you win those battles, sometimes you don't. And you have to trust them at the end of the day. But I also think it's important that when you feel strongly about something that you really do fight for it.
And we do the, you know, the relationship as well. We're constantly, I guess season 1 also gave us the confidence and the ability to sort of understand our characters more. And season 2, definitely, it's been very much about sort of taking all that information we learned in season 1 and continuing it into season 2.
Absolutely. So much of season 2, without giving away any spoilers, seems to be about the nuance of your relationship, at least in the early episodes. And that nuance, to me, seems like it would be... It's one thing to write it on the page, it's another thing as an actor to find in the scene, and that's where those conversations with the writers or the directors seem like it would really start to happen, because you really have to figure out how your character would just sort of visually react to something that is happening. There are a lot of wordless scenes between the two of you. How have you sort of found working together and finding those scenes with each other?
We have a great working relationship. I mean, you don't work this closely for this long without having a very deep understanding of each other's process. And, you know, now there's an intimacy, I think, when we all work together that I'll see what pushes Sam's buttons, and I think he can tell with me as well. And, you know, it's that great... What are you looking at me that way?
I'm saying nothing at all.
So much because of the... I think because of the... sexuality of the show, there's so much unintended innuendo.
I know, it's like I can't say anything anymore.
Yeah.
Pushing the buttons.
Buttons.
Oh, you dirty girl.
But
do doing scenes like that also help the sort of intimacy of scenes that don't feature any kind of sexual situation? When you are forced to sort of be that physical with someone in front of the camera, I would imagine that it also loosens you up or opens you up to be more open just doing emotional.
I think doing any...
No, the word!
I think doing any kind of scene, and you know, you've got to look someone in the eye for a long time, and I think you just get to see a part of them that, you know, we're as sort of human beings very guarded most of the time, and this is a very revealing profession, I think, in a lot of the scenes that we do, and yeah, I think it does build a bond. It's like that sort of, you go through a traumatic experience together, it kind of bonds you closer.
It's one of the real benefits of doing multiple seasons and long-form TV is that as a group of actors and as a group of writers and producers, we grow together, and that sort of, but those relationships deepen it, and I think that does have payoff in the material. So, I mean, the stuff that Caitriona and I were doing at the beginning of season 2, I don't know whether we would have been able to shoot that at the beginning of season 1. I think definitely that's sort of marinated in, all that's happened in the last 3 years and working together.
I love those scenes between the two of you at the beginning of season 2. It's a completely different side of your character, and there's a lot of setup for what may or may not happen with him in terms of who he could become or how he might change because of this relationship. I'm kind of curious. You have 2 roles to play, and one of them is the good guy, and one of them is the real juicy villain. Do you have a preference? Do you have more fun playing one over the other?
I think on the surface of it, of course, Jack is one of the great villains. I think Diana's written a fantastic character, and so. But increasingly, I'm finding Frank has a real payoff. You mentioned the stuff at the beginning of season 2. I think Ron and the writers have done a really good job, and they've drawn Frank out slightly more in the TV show than perhaps he is in the books. And so I mean, the honest answer is the variety between these 2 characters is such an unusual proposition, and it's been really fruitful to explore both.
Absolutely. Going into season 2, without any spoilers, how is Jamie doing?
Yes.
After the end of season 1, which maybe we should talk a little bit about that as well, the sort of brutality at the end of season 1. But how is Jamie doing going into season 2?
Yeah, I think he's been rescued by Claire, and they've fled to France to sort of build a new life. But also they're on a mission. But he is still physically and emotionally, more importantly, scarred by Blackjack Randall and by what happened to him. And I think his the way he deals with things is by just getting on with it, not thinking about it or not dealing with it. And so he puts it to one side and sort of really throws himself into this mission to stop history and change fate. And
I mean, it has a massive effect on one of the most important parts of his and Claire's relationship, which I think is interesting, that the show is exploring that.
Yeah, I think so. We didn't want to, dive back into bed straight away, so to speak. He needs to cure himself, and it does begin to poison their relationship. It drives them apart from each other, and it takes a lot for them to reconnect. And actually, then his sort of salvation or their recovery of the relationship comes through different forms. But one is the unborn child that Claire is carrying. This new family unit that they're creating is something that does bond them closer.
Going back to the end of season 1, I mean, shooting the sort of vengeance rape that takes place, was that a difficult scene to shoot? What was that like? And what?
Another day at the office.
You guys are really immature. I'm wondering what it was like to shoot that scene. And also, while shooting that scene, I'm sure you're thinking about the story and getting your performance done for the day, but there has to be an element of you that knows that this is almost kind of subversive in terms of the genre and this being on television. I know a lot of people have called this a kind of counter-programming to Game of Thrones, and I think in many ways that scene showcases it in terms of where it's willing to go and how it's willing to explore sexuality, where it's not just about flaunting nudity or anything like that. It's about the story behind it.
I mean, they of course, inevitably, they were a difficult sequence to film. I think there was a slightly odd atmosphere. I mean, it was sort of something slightly subdued about, because obviously it is very dark territory that we had to go to. But I think it also feels like the best of days, because it's the sort of material that you really relish as an actor. It gives you such depth to sort of explore. And but I do remember we didn't really sort of chat much.
No, we didn't hang out by the coffee.
No, between takes. It was we sort of just intuited that we sort of had to leave each other alone. Yeah. And
I do like the idea of the two of you like smoking a cigarette by the coffee machine. But, we're ready to roll. All right.
It was. I do remember actually the last. We sort of thought we'd finish the whole sequence, and it'd been like almost like 10 days or something. Yeah. And we were outside in between sort of setting up shots and having coffee, and actually suddenly things got quite relaxed, and it was great. And we're like, oh, thank God. And then I remember the director coming back and saying, we've got to do the whole thing one more time. And it was
that wide, that's right.
Oh, wow.
You were just starting to look at each other in the eye again.
Yeah.
Does the show, many have called the show in some ways counter-programming to Game of Thrones. Does it feel like that to you? Are you guys aware of Game of Thrones or the other fantasy shows that are on, and where your show?
Tobias is intimately aware of Game of Thrones.
Excuse me.
He's honest.
So, yeah, no.
Are you aware? What haven't you been in?
It's a very short list. I'll hand it out later. Yeah, I mean, there was an interesting debate actually around the time when the end of season 1 came out, in contrast to Game of Thrones, about the depiction of rape. I mean, what's unusual about our one is obviously it's a male-on-male rape, which is pretty unusual to depict. Certainly in Thrones, it's largely women are the victims. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for how Game of Thrones approached it, but we certainly felt there was a responsibility about earning the right to show that. I suppose it was important that it came out of character and story, and that it never felt gratuitous.
Caitriona, where is Claire for you going into season 2? This is the only thing that I can do without giving away any spoilers in the questions. It's got to be a very vague sort of like, what is she doing?
How's she doing? Well, I feel like last season, Claire was it was very reactionary. Everything was happening very fast and furious. She was in a new place. So nothing was really, things didn't land as much. There was no time to sort of sit and contemplate things. But when we find them back in Paris, it's a much quieter time in a sense for her. She's pregnant. That is a huge change on who she is. I think things just it's much more contemplative in a way. We find her in Paris. She's trying to encourage Jamie to keep busy. She's giving him this mission in the hopes that will somehow help heal him and also bring them back together. But it's almost quite a lonely time for her because she has to self-sacrifice and she has to deal with the pregnancy on her own, and she's left in the house wandering, looking after servants, and she doesn't really have a purpose, and she's a very purposeful character. So it's not until she discovers L'Hôpital des Anges that we see her finally coming into her own again, and she feels useful and she feels like she has some kind of purpose.
Absolutely. I want to turn it over to audience questions. Actually, never mind. You guys aren't going to... No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. So the whole reason why I started Outlander is my 2 cousins right here. They made me fall in love with the show, so thank you for giving us more reason to bond over. My question is, if you could touch a stone and go back to a specific moment in your life, not a time period, but in your life, what would it be and why?
In your life, not a time period.
Wow.
I think I've told that story. I mean, you got anything? It's a very good question. You can
That's
see
a very
the
good
flash.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's quite a hard question.
The 3 of them are in a pretty good time in their life right now.
Yeah. Why go back?
Things are going well. Depends what kind of stone you're touching as well, I suppose.
Like if you're in LA and you're touching crystals or something, like a new age time.
Yeah, then you're doing really well.
Why don't we let them ponder on that one and
Yeah.
we'll move on to another question. What's the next question?
Hey guys, so one of the main things I like about the show is the location and the costume design. So going into season 2, like, what was the transition like for you guys, moving from Scotland to Paris, and the change of clothes that you guys had to wear?
Well, to be honest, in the beginning it was a little disconcerting because we'd been so used to filming this one show and being out and about in the wild and sort of running around and horse riding, and then all of a sudden, because we shot all of the interiors together, we were in these, beautiful sets, absolutely stunning, but it was very restrictive in a way. And I think Sam and I both, we were like, what is this? What are we doing? And the costumes were so different, but, it mirrored our character's journey. So I think it worked very well. And as we were getting used to it, so were our characters. Terry Dressback does such a fantastic job. You guys know who that is. And I think this season, what's so exciting about it is that visually it's just so different. And last season it was very wild and muted and earth tones. And this season it's just a feast for the eyes, and it's so sumptuous and luxurious. And yeah, I think it's a lovely juxtaposition.
Next question.
Thanks for coming. I wanted to know, when you were filming your intense emotional scenes, where do you draw inspiration from?
What stone do you touch to draw
Yeah,
inspiration
what stone
from?
do I touch?
Yes, it's a very different stone now.
Yeah. You touch the acting stone.
Yeah.
I mean, I use music quite a lot. I find that a really useful way to sort of get, to sort of get in the mood, get the atmosphere, get your emotions kind of flowing. I mean, it's an inherently sort of artificial process, filming. It's all broken up, and you know, if you're doing a scene over 3 or 4 hours, you've got to sort of be in that place for quite a long time. So, yeah, kind of shutting all that out and sort of going inside with some music is certainly a really useful technique.
Yeah, I think, you know, it depends on the scene sometimes. I like to use music as well, but sometimes I like to find bits of writing that deal with whatever I'm about to go in. So, you know, if it's, for the example, at the beginning of season 2, there's a lot of Claire's experiencing a lot of grief, and I tried to read as much about that, but like more personal accounts of that. The Year of Magical Thinking was something that I read a lot right before we filmed some of that stuff. So it depends. I think each scene and each situation requires its own special triggers. And so you have to sort of do your research and figure out what will hit you for that.
Yeah, and I guess also not making too many decisions beforehand, you know, allowing the scene to affect you and the other actor in front of you to affect you, and so you're creating something and not sort of imposing something on a scene. Yeah, it's different techniques, I guess.
Guys, I think I have to let you go, but when can people see the season premiere of Outlander?
April 9th?
April 9th.
9
Or,
p.m.
if you've got the app.
Why are you Oh, okay. You were pointing to yourself and saying now. And
This lady here has the app.
Are you guys going to reenact the whole episode for us?
Oh my God, please. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
Congratulations
much.
on season 2.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.